me ask you something that nobody ever asks you directly. Have you ever been the most honest person in the room and still lost? Have you ever worked harder than everyone around you and watched someone less qualified take everything you earned? Have you ever trusted someone completely and had that trust used against you like a weapon? If your answer is yes, then you already understand something most people spend their entire lives refusing to accept. The world does not reward the most deserving. It rewards the most intelligent. Not book intelligent. Not degree intelligent. Strategically intelligent. And today, you are going to learn exactly what that means. These are the 8 psychological traits that separate people who survive from people who get destroyed. People who lead from people who follow. People who build empires from people who build excuses. But before we go any further, I need you to hear this clearly. This knowledge is a weapon. And like every weapon, its value depends entirely on the hands holding it. Use what you learn today to protect yourself. To see through manipulation before it touches you. To understand the game so you never become the pawn. Not to destroy people. Not to control innocent lives. Not to become the villain in someone else's story. The goal is to understand the game. Not to become someone who should never have learned it. Now, drop this in the comments right now before we go any further. I choose to be strategically intelligent, not emotionally reactive. Now let's begin. The first trait of dark intelligence is one that most people do completely backwards their entire lives. It's called calculated opacity, and it is the art of never being fully readable. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes in conversation. Someone asks you a question and your brain immediately feels obligated to answer it completely. You explain your motivations. You share your plans. You reveal your fears. You think you're being honest and trustworthy. But what you're actually doing is spending your most valuable currency without even realizing it. That currency is mystery. Machiavelli wrote something that most people read and dismiss, until the day they realize he was right. He said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Think about the most compelling people you've ever encountered in your life. The people who stayed in your mind after every conversation. The people you found yourself thinking about later, wondering about, wanting to understand. Did they tell you everything? Did they explain every decision? Did they answer every question completely? They revealed just enough to keep you engaged, and left just enough unsaid to keep you curious. Because here's what psychology tells us. The human brain cannot tolerate an incomplete story. When information is missing, the mind doesn't go quiet. It fills the gap. It creates assumptions. It builds narratives. And those narratives, created entirely inside someone else's imagination, give you influence you never had to fight for. Here's a simple example that will change how you handle every conversation from this moment forward. Someone asks, "What are you doing this weekend?" Most people say, "Nothing much. Probably staying home, watching something, maybe ordering food." Complete answer. Forgettable answer. Powerless answer. A strategically intelligent person says, "I've got something important I'm taking care of." Then they change the subject. Notice what just happened. The first answer makes you predictable. The second answer makes you interesting. The first answer closes the conversation. The second opens a door inside their mind that they cannot stop thinking about. This is not about lying. It is not about being cold or rude or secretive for its own sake. It is about understanding that your information is your currency, and the most valuable currency in the world only holds value when it is rare. The moment you practice calculated opacity consistently, something shifts in how people engage with you. They pay more attention when you speak. They lean in closer. They treat your words with more weight. Because they know you don't give them easily. The second trait will make you someone that almost everyone instinctively trusts, without knowing why. It's called adaptive persona, and it is the difference between being heard and being ignored in every room you walk into. Most people communicate the same way with everyone. Same tone. Same language. Same energy. Same approach. And then they wonder why some people connect with them deeply while others seem completely unmoved. Here's the truth that changes everything. Every single person you will ever meet in your life processes the world differently. They have different values, different emotional triggers, different communication styles, different ways of making sense of information. If you walk into every conversation using the same version of yourself, you will connect with the people who happen to think like you. And you will completely miss everyone else. Adaptive persona is the art of being the right version of yourself for each person you're dealing with. Is the person in front of you analytical? They respond to data. Give them numbers, evidence, logical frameworks. Are they emotional? They respond to feeling. Connect with their experience before you try to share information. Are they practical? Show them how something actually works in the real world. They don't care about theory. Are they visionary? They need the big picture. Paint the destination before you explain the path. Machiavelli described this as a prince appearing to those around him as merciful, faithful, humane, upright, in whatever way was needed in the moment. Not because those qualities were fake, but because showing the right quality at the right time is how real leadership actually works. Think about water. Pour it into a glass. It becomes the glass. Pour it into a bowl. It becomes the bowl. Put it in the ocean. It becomes the ocean. And through every single transformation, it is still, undeniably, water. Your adaptive persona works exactly the same way. You shift your expression. You never shift your core. Your values stay constant. Your principles stay intact. Your fundamental character never moves. Only the presentation adjusts, so the person in front of you can actually receive what you're giving them. The strongest people in any room are like diamonds. Every facet shows something different depending on the angle. But it is still one diamond, solid, unbreakable whole. Of all 8 traits, this one is the most misunderstood, and possibly the most powerful. It is called the principle of detachment, and it is the psychological foundation of every person who has ever negotiated from a position of genuine strength. When people first hear the word detachment, they think it means not caring, being cold, shutting down emotionally, building walls. That is not what this means. Detachment means being completely free. Let me show you the difference with a single image that I want you to carry with you after this video ends. Imagine 2 people sitting across from each other at a negotiating table. Person A needs this deal. They've already made plans around it. They've told people it's going to happen. They're emotionally invested in a specific outcome. Every moment of silence in that room makes them more anxious. Person B wants this deal, but they also have 3 other conversations happening this week. They would be happy if this works out. They would be completely fine if it doesn't. Now ask yourself, who holds the power in that room? Not the person with the most credentials. Not the person with the better argument. The person who is genuinely willing to walk away. Because here is what desperation does to your intelligence. It destroys it. When you need something too much, you can't think clearly about it. You can't see manipulation when it's aimed at you. You can't negotiate fairly when the thought of losing feels like collapse. Fear of loss is the single most exploited psychological vulnerability in human history. Every manipulator, every toxic person, every abusive relationship operates on the same mechanism, creating in you a fear of losing something that they then use to control your behavior. The moment you develop genuine detachment from outcomes, that mechanism stops working. The threat has no teeth. The manipulation has no grip. And here's the paradox that changes everything. The less desperately you need something, the more likely you are to get it. Confidence doesn't come from having everything go your way. Confidence comes from knowing, in your bones, that you will be completely okay even if it doesn't. Practice this in small ways first. Stop needing to win every argument. Stop needing approval from people who don't matter. Stop being so attached to your plans working out exactly as you imagine them. As that muscle gets stronger, so does everything else. Most people believe power is loud. They associate dominance with volume, with demands, with force, with the person in the room who never stops talking. They are wrong. The 4th trait is silent leverage, and it is the most sophisticated form of influence that exists. Real power whispers. Silent leverage is not about doing nothing. It is about positioning yourself so strategically that your presence alone changes the dynamic of every situation you enter. Without demands. Without pressure. Without anyone fully understanding how it's happening. Let me break down exactly how this works in the real world. In conversation, silent leverage looks like comfort with silence. Most people are so uncomfortable with gaps in conversation that they fill them automatically. And the things they say to fill silence reveal more about them than 10 minutes of planned conversation ever would. When you can sit in silence without anxiety, you control the rhythm. You control the weight of every word spoken. You control who reveals more. The next time someone asks you a difficult question, don't answer immediately. First, hold their gaze. Let the silence expand. Then respond. Watch how the entire weight of the conversation shifts in that moment. In negotiations, silent leverage means having alternatives you never mention. You don't need to threaten to walk away. Your genuine ability to walk away does the threatening for you. The other person senses it, and that changes everything about how they engage. In relationships, silent leverage means being the person who consistently adds genuine value without announcing it, without asking for recognition, without keeping score. You don't demand loyalty. You earn it so completely that giving it becomes their idea. In professional environments, silent leverage means becoming the person everyone comes to when the problem is serious. Not because you announced your capabilities, but because you demonstrated them quietly and consistently until your reputation preceded you into every room. The key that unlocks all of this is patience. Silent leverage is not a short game. It is the long game, played by the people who understand that real influence is not taken. It is created over time until it is offered freely. Plant seeds. Water them. Walk away. Come back when they've grown. The fifth trait will make people feel, without being able to explain why, that you understand them more deeply than almost anyone in their life. It is called psychological echo, and it is the art of becoming a mirror that reflects back what people most need to see and feel. Here is a truth about human beings that most people never fully grasp. People do not make decisions based on logic. They make decisions based on how they feel, and then they use logic to explain those decisions afterward. People don't buy products. They buy solutions to pain they don't always know how to name. People don't follow leaders. They follow people who make them feel seen. People don't stay loyal to companies. They stay loyal to places where they feel valued. The question psychological echo asks is this: what does this person actually need beneath everything they're saying? Because what people say and what people need are almost never exactly the same thing. Machiavelli understood this. He wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are." What he meant was this: people respond to what they feel in your presence far more than what you tell them with your words. So here's how psychological echo works in practice. Every person you meet is silently asking 3 questions in every interaction. Do you see me? Do you understand me? Do you value me? When your words and presence answer yes to all 3, you create a connection that almost nothing can break. When you leave people feeling genuinely understood, they don't just like you. They trust you. They seek you out. They want to bring you their best problems to solve. The technique itself is simple but requires real attention. Listen not just to what people say, but to the emotion behind what they say. The need behind the complaint. The fear hiding inside the anger. Someone says, "I hate my job." Most people hear that and immediately offer advice. Get a new job. Update your resume. Talk to your boss. But if you listen deeper, you might hear that what they actually mean is, "I don't feel valued for what I bring. I feel like my work doesn't matter. I'm afraid this is all there is." A psychological echo response reflects that back. It sounds like you're ready to be somewhere that actually recognizes what you're capable of. Do you feel the difference? You're not fixing their problem. You're making them feel that you actually heard the real problem. And that moment, that feeling of being truly understood, is rarer and more powerful than almost any advice you could give. This is the most controversial of all 8 traits, and the one most likely to be misunderstood. So I'm going to be very precise about what this means and what it absolutely does not mean. Ambiguous morality is not the absence of ethics. It is not permission to do whatever you want. It is not justification for cruelty, deception, or harm. What it is the mature understanding that the real world is not black and white, and that people who insist it must be often cause more damage than the people they claim to oppose. Here is the reality that most people are never taught. Sometimes the kind thing in the short term creates the cruel outcome in the long run. Sometimes being nice enables destruction. Sometimes protecting people, real lives, requires making decisions that look harsh from the outside. Let me give you a concrete example. You're in a position of responsibility. Someone on your team has been consistently dishonest, with clients, with colleagues, and the damage is spreading. The comfortable thing is to give them another chance. Another warning. Another conversation. But while you're being comfortable, honest people on your team are watching. Clients are being deceived. The entire culture of what you're building is slowly being poisoned. Someone with ambiguous morality asks a different question than, "What makes me look like the good person here?" They ask, "What decision produces the best outcome for the most people, including people who aren't in this room?" That is pragmatic ethics. And it is harder, not easier, than simple moral rules. The crucial distinction that separates ambiguous morality from selfishness is this. You are not asking, "What benefits me?" You are asking, "What actually serves the greater good?" Even when that answer is uncomfortable? This requires you to establish clear personal boundaries before you need them. What will you never do regardless of circumstances? What lines will never move no matter the justification? Within those non-negotiable boundaries, give yourself permission to be strategic, pragmatic, and effective in a world that rarely offers clean answers. In a world where everyone broadcasts every thought, every meal, every opinion, every emotion to anyone willing to scroll, the seventh trait of dark intelligence has become rarer and more valuable than ever. It is called controlled exposure, and it is the deliberate, strategic management of what you reveal about yourself, to whom, and when. Most people share everything. They overshare in conversations to fill silence. They overshare online to feel connection. They reveal too much too soon in relationships. They broadcast their capabilities before they've proven them. They show their cards before they need to play them. And every time they do, they lose something they can never get back. Because information revealed can never be unrevealed. Here's the psychology behind why this matters so much. The human brain has a built-in mechanism called the curiosity gap, the discomfort created when we sense that information exists but is missing. It drives us to seek, to pay attention, to engage. When you practice controlled exposure, you create curiosity gaps in every relationship and every room. People become more attentive to you, more interested, more inclined to lean in and listen when you do choose to speak. Think about the most captivating people you've ever encountered. They share enough to make you feel connected, and leave enough unsaid to make you want more. In professional settings, this means not revealing all your capabilities at once. Reveal them gradually as they become relevant. This creates the impression of continuous growth rather than someone who peaked early and has nothing left to offer. In personal relationships, this means earning the right to deeper disclosure over time. Sharing personal information gradually as trust genuinely develops, not as a performance of openness, but as a genuine reflection of the intimacy that's been built. In negotiations, this means never showing all your priorities up front. Keep information in reserve. Deploy it strategically. The person who reveals everything first has already lost the most important advantage. And in the digital world, this means being ruthlessly intentional about your online presence. Everything you post is permanent. Everything you share becomes part of how the world builds its mental image of you. The most strategic people understand that their digital persona is as important as their physical presence, and they manage it accordingly. Controlled exposure is not about being dishonest. It is not about being cold or distant. It is about maintaining authorship over your own narrative, instead of letting other people write your story with whatever scraps you've carelessly scattered. The eighth and final trait is the one that brings all the others together. Without this one, the other seven are just interesting ideas. With it, They become a system that actually changes results in the real world. It is called outcome obsession, and it is the absolute refusal to waste energy on anything that does not move you toward what actually matters. Most people approach every situation with the wrong question. They ask, how do I look good here? They ask, how do I prove I'm right? They ask, how do I make sure people know I worked hard? Outcome-obsessed people ask one question and only one question. What result am I actually trying to create? And then every single decision, every word spoken, every action taken, every energy invested, gets filtered through that question. Let me show you how this changes everything. Take arguments. Most people approach disagreements like debate competitions. The goal is to win, to expose the other person's logical flaws, to be proven correct. And in pursuing that goal, they destroy relationships, close minds, and achieve nothing. An outcome-obsessed person asks, what do I actually want from this conversation? Maybe the goal is to change the other person's behavior. In that case, making them feel wrong and stupid is the worst possible strategy. People become more stubborn when they feel attacked. A better path might be guiding them to reach the right conclusion themselves. Maybe the goal is to maintain a relationship while addressing a real problem. In that case, being technically right is almost irrelevant. Finding a solution both people can live with is everything. This applies everywhere. In work, outcome obsession means choosing what to focus on based on actual impact rather than what looks impressive. It means constantly asking, is this activity moving me toward my goal, or am I just staying busy to avoid the harder, more important work? This is what I call strategic laziness, and it is a superpower. Outcome-obsessed people often appear to do less than others, because they are ruthlessly selective about where they place their energy. They focus on the 20% of actions that produce 80% of results. They are not trying to be the hardest working person. They are trying to be the most effective person. And when a strategy isn't working, they change it without ego, because they are attached to their goals, not their methods. One path closes, they find another. One approach fails, they develop a new one. The goal never moves. The route to it remains permanently flexible. This combination, clarity of outcome combined with flexibility of method, is what makes outcome-obsessed people almost impossible to stop over time. You've just been given 8 traits that most people will never learn. Not because the information is hidden, but because most people are not willing to look at the world clearly enough to use it. Calculated opacity, because your mystery is your power. Adaptive persona, because speaking someone's language is how you enter their world. Detachment, because what you're not afraid to lose cannot control you. Silent leverage, because real influence whispers. Psychological echo, because being understood is the rarest feeling a human being can experience. Ambiguous morality, because the real world demands real wisdom, not comfortable rules. Controlled exposure, because your narrative belongs to you. And outcome obsession, because at the end of everything, results are the only language that reality speaks. Now here's what I want you to do. Don't try to become all 8 of these things at once. Pick the one that hit you hardest. The one you felt in your chest when you heard it. The one that explains something you've been living through without having the words for. Practice that one. Every day. For the next 7 days. Watch how people respond to you differently. Watch how you start responding to situations differently, and remember what this is all for. Not to become someone who manipulates people. Not to become someone who uses psychology to take from others. The most dangerous person in any room is the one with nothing to lose. But the most valuable person in any room is the one who understands human psychology deeply enough to use it in service of something greater than themselves. That is the true purpose of dark intelligence.